You know, the Great Lakes and their connected waterways cover more than 94,000 square miles and make up the world's largest freshwater system. It's not only geography, but ethnic traditions and seasonality that help define the cuisine of this region. Today on Martha Bakes, I'll share 4 mouth-watering regional favorites. A Belgian rice pie cooked in a bread crust. So unusual, but so delicious. And a Blitz Torte. Blitz because it takes a very short time to make. An Indiana sugar cream pie, also known as a desperation pie, when you don't have anything to put in your pie. And a wonderful moist cheddar bread. All of this today on Martha Bakes. If you happen to be in Door County, Wisconsin in late September, you might come upon the annual Belgian Harvest Festival, known as the Kermis. You're sure to come across Belgian Rice Pie, an absolute standout that's served at the festival. It's made with a yeast dough instead of a traditional pie crust, and it's filled with an irresistible combination of creamy rice and prune puree. So the first step is to make the prune puree, and we're using a half a cup of pitted prunes, a half a cup of raisins, dark raisins, a quarter of a cup of light brown sugar, a teaspoon of lemon zest, a teaspoon's about a half of a regular sized lemon, and a quarter of a cup of brandy and a quarter of a cup of water. Bring this to a simmer, cook for 10 minutes, turn it off, and let the fruits absorb all the liquid. And we have a swap out right here. You can see plump and shiny, very, very little liquid in the bottom of the pan. This, once cooled, can be put right into a food processor. And what you're making is the bottom layer of that rice pie. And puree this. You're making a nice spreadable paste. I think that's good. And you can just put this in a bowl and just cover that lightly and put in the refrigerator just to keep it cold. And now for the rice layer of the pie. 1.5 cups of water in a medium-sized saucepan with a tightly fitting lid. A half a cup of arborio rice. And add a half teaspoon of salt. Let this come to a boil, reduce to a simmer, and keep covered, stirring occasionally until all the water has evaporated. That takes about 20 minutes. So the rice is cooked. Stir into the rice 4 cups of whole milk. You're basically now making a rice pudding, and the pudding will be the top layer in your pie. A half a cup of sugar, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, a half a teaspoon of cinnamon, and just a little grated fresh nutmeg. It's not really fresh, but it's freshly grated nutmeg. Turn your heat up and simmer, stirring frequently until the rice is very tender. That takes another 30 minutes. So in a medium bowl, whisk 4 large eggs. The rice mixture has cooked. It's nice and thick. And while whisking constantly, add a small amount of your hot rice mixture and keep whisking. So what you're basically doing is tempering your eggs. And once the eggs are warm, you can add this whole thing right back into the pot and just keep stirring for 3 minutes or so until it's thick like a pudding. So this is now beautifully thick. Transfer it to a bowl, and this is what's going to be baked in your pie. Put a piece of plastic wrap right on the surface so it doesn't form a skin. Let this cool for about 30 minutes and then put it into the refrigerator for at least 30 minutes longer. So this is the crust, and it is a bread crust, not a pâte brisée crust. In a measuring cup with a quarter cup of warm water, dissolve, or bloom we call it, 1 package of active dry yeast. So this is what's going to make the crust nice and light and fluffy. In a bowl, mix a half a teaspoon salt with 2 cups of all-purpose flour. And in the bowl of an electric mixer, Beat 2 eggs with 1 teaspoon of good vanilla, vanilla extract, 1/4 cup of sugar, our eggs beating, and 2 tablespoons of butter melted and cooling. Add your yeast and your flour. Just keep mixing it until the dough comes away from the sides of the bowl and all the dry ingredients are thoroughly mixed. So put a little bit of flour on your surface here. Just knead this. The gluten has to relax in the dough. Form it into a ball and put it in a buttered bowl. Cover and let rise until doubled in bulk in a warm, dry place. So here's our dough doubled in bulk. And have a 9-inch glass pie dish, just like this. And this doesn't require rolling at all. You just have to punch it down and form it with your fingers into a crust slightly larger than the dish itself. You want a nice little edge all the way around. That'll hold the filling in. And just put this in the dish. No holes in the bottom crust. Try to make it an even thickness. When was the last time you made a pie with a yeast crust? I can think of something I made last week. You might have made it too. Pizza pie. But this would be like a deep dish pizza with an entirely different kind of filling. Now this gets the prune filling spread in the bottom, and you can just put the whole amount right in the center and spread it with an offset spatula. Every piece should have an equal amount of that delicious prune filling. And now your rice pudding filling. This is nice and cold. And if you like rice pudding, well, you could actually serve this as rice pudding with a big dollop of whipped cream on top. So just smooth this out. Get it right into a preheated 350-degree oven, about an hour. And if the crust browns too quickly, tent the whole thing, leaving a hole in the top of your foil to let the steam rise. I'd set your timer for 45 minutes, check, another 15 minutes, cool on a rack, and then refrigerate completely for at least 2 hours and even up to overnight. So here it is. A very unusual but beautiful pie, I think, and rice might be the most popular filling in Door County, but this pie will be equally delicious with apple, cherry, or raisin. Give any of those a try and bake a pie. Enjoy. Blitz Torte is a show-stopping cake of German or Austrian origin. Its name refers to the fact that it's as quick as lightning to make, with decadent layers of tender yellow cake, crispy meringue, and a creamy orange-flavored custard filling. So to make the cake first, in the bowl of an electric mixer, cream 1 stick of butter, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a 1/2 cup of sugar, get that nice and creamy, add 4 large egg yolks, and save the egg whites in a bowl of the mixer because those are going to be turned into a crispy meringue. Add 1 yolk at a time. So easy to separate good fresh eggs. And you have 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Also 1 teaspoon of baking powder, which you can put into this mix right there to make sure it gets all mixed in. And 1 cup of all-purpose flour. And you can add the flour a little at a time. Alternate with 1/4 cup of buttermilk. Now, if you don't have buttermilk and you can't find it in the grocery store, you can just take a cup of whole milk and add a tablespoon of white vinegar or lemon juice, fresh lemon juice, and let it acidulate for, about 10 minutes. It gets nice and thick and curdled and acts very much like buttermilk. So that should be well mixed. And we have 2 9-inch cake pans that have been buttered and floured. So divide the batter as evenly as you can, and you want to make sure you get it all. So once the batter gets in the pan, just leave it and beat the meringue. Here we have the 4 egg whites in the machine fitted with a wire whisk, and whisk until soft peaks. Takes a few minutes. And make sure your bowl is very clean, your beater is very clean. No oil whatsoever, because that does prevent eggs from getting voluminous. In the meantime, a half a cup of sliced blanched almonds mixed with 1 tablespoon of sugar and a half a teaspoon of cinnamon. This gets tossed together, and that'll be sprinkled over the top. Once the egg whites are frothy like this, add 1 cup of granulated sugar. A fine stream. This will be a nice sweet meringue. It really makes this cake extra delicious. And now, soft peaks, exactly what we want. And now spread this beautiful, beautiful meringue half on one cake and half on the other. And you can do this by eye or by weight. And spread this with an offset spatula all over the batter. And now sprinkle half of your almond mixture on one cake and half on the other. And when I say cake, I mean layer, because this is all one cake. Transfer to your preheated 350-degree oven and bake until lightly browned, about 30 minutes. When they come out of the oven, transfer to a wire rack to cool for 15 minutes. Gently remove the cakes from the pans and return the cakes to a rack to cool completely. So now for our orange-flavored, beautiful pastry cream. 4 egg yolks mixed into 2 cups of whole milk, and whisk them quite well. I like to do this prior to adding them to the dry ingredients. And 2 tablespoons of orange juice, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. So that's all nicely incorporated, yes. And in your saucepan, you have a half a cup of sugar, a quarter of a cup of cornstarch, and a pinch of salt. And you can mix those together. I think I'll do that with a spoon. And then whisk in your liquids before you turn on the heat. This is the simplest way to make a pastry cream. Make sure everything is well mixed. Turn your heat on and bring the mixture to a boil. And you can even add at this time 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Now I suggest that you don't go for a walk or leave the stove. Pretty much stir this mixture until it comes to a boil. Reduce the heat and keep it boiling for 1 minute. At the very end, you're going to add 2 tablespoons of beautiful orange rind. I do that after I strain my pastry cream. So it has come to a boil. See how nice and thick it's gotten? It now has to be put through a sieve to get out any lumps, and then I'm going to add my beautiful orange zest. I'd like to see the little pieces of orange in this pastry cream. You can put the orange zest in while you're cooking it too if you like, and you want a completely smooth pastry cream. And this has to cool, and then scrape your strainer. And now this will add a unique and delicious orange flavor to this crème pâtissière. So there, all done. Put a piece of plastic wrap right on the surface to prevent a skin from forming. Let it cool, and then put it in the refrigerator and chill it for at least 2 hours and up to 2 days. So now whisk your pastry cream just to fluff it up, and to assemble this beautiful, beautiful cake, put your pastry cream on the bottom layer. It will fill that little cavity nicely and fill any nooks and crannies. So everything is cold. Now, lift your top layer. You can try doing it by hand, but I think it's much safer to just slide a large spatula underneath and place this carefully on top. And mission accomplished, a beautiful Blitz Torte. What's so great about this cake is that you can customize it using your favorite flavor combinations. So you could put a lemon curd in between or a chocolate curd. Whichever one you choose, I know you're going to love the Blitz Torte. Enjoy. Indiana sugar cream pie. Doesn't that sound great? It's otherwise known as Hoosier pie, and it comes from the Amish and the Shaker communities that settled in Indiana in the 1800s. Made from cream and milk and butter, the Great Lakes region is famous for. This rich custard pie is the official pie of Indiana. It's sometimes called a desperation pie, a category that refers to pies made when fresh fruit wasn't available or money was short, but milk was plentiful because there's lots of cows. First, make the crust. Now, this is a pâte brisée butter crust, and it's been rolled out, the edges turned under a double edge on the edge of the glass pie plate. And notice what I'm doing. I'm trying to make an unusual pointed pie crust. So what I'm doing is making all slanted cuts going one way, and then you just do a slanted cut this way, and those little triangles come popping right out, and you can do this in a matter of a couple minutes. It's so cute. It looks like shark teeth, even though there are no sharks in Indiana. So see, look, all done in just a matter of minutes. Very cute. What will you do with those? Well, you could probably roll them out and make a little jelly tart. So here's the crust. You can now blind bake this, and you do want it to be cold when you put it into your preheated oven, 375 degrees, lined with parchment, and your weights. The store-bought kind of weights or the dried bean kind of weights. We always use dried beans, which the first couple times you bake your crusts with beans, they smell like beans, but after 10 or 15 years of use, they just become objects with no scent whatsoever. 375 degrees. Bake it for about 25 minutes, and then carefully remove the weights and the parchment and let it continue to bake for about 15 minutes more. Now for the filling, the custard. Now see, we have a crust already baked. Oh, by the way, if your crust starts, the little points start to darken, just put a 10-inch quiche tart pan ring over the points and they won't get too brown. Half a stick of butter. We're going to make a roux first, and 1/4 cup of flour. This is your thickener for the custard. A roux is basically a cooked mixture of fat and flour, and it's one of the cornerstones of sauce making. So we just really want to cook the flour a little bit, 2 minutes or so, over medium heat. We do not want it to darken, just to get the floury taste away. And then add 1 cup of heavy cream and 1 cup of whole milk, 1 cup of sugar, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Bring this to a boil and then reduce to a simmer and cook for barely a minute or two until it really thickens up. So now we're going to pour it right into our beautifully baked crust. Be careful of the points, you don't want to break them. And you can just pour right through your strainer. If you have your husband or a friend, it would help right now to scrape out the remaining custard, but I'll manage. So beautiful. And get this right into your preheated oven until the filling is slightly set, about 25 minutes. Remove from the oven, cool on a rack, and don't serve until it is completely cool. So, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm really desperate for a piece of pie. I need a pick-me-up. What could be better than a piece of desperation pie, where indeed the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Look how nicely it cuts. Indiana cream pie, Hoosier pie, desperation pie. It's so cute and so delicious. Try it. I think you'll really like it. People who live in Wisconsin are sometimes nicknamed cheeseheads, and that's because they love their cheese, and there are more than 600 varieties made there. Joining me today from our test kitchen is Sarah Curry, who you all know. And Sarah has a really quick and tasty quick bread using cheddar from America's Dairyland. I love cheddar cheese.
Me too.
Actually, like sometimes when I get home, I eat a piece of cheddar cheese.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an excellent thing to eat.
I know, it's so good.
I would say I do that 3 days a week.
And I like the really dry cheddar, strong, white or yellow.
They're making great cheeses in Wisconsin now, actually.
They are. 2 eggs I'm supposed to break in here, right?
2 eggs,
Okay.
a cup of buttermilk, and 4 tablespoons of butter. You can whisk those together.
Melted.
Melted and cooled. This is 7 ounces of cheddar that's going to get mixed into the bread.
So it's a quick bread.
Yep.
No yeast.
No yeast, no machines. Just mix everything together by hand.
No reason not to have good bread at home for a snack.
Completely.
Now, what do you eat on cheese bread? Cheese?
Well, you can eat cheese, but I like a marmalade or a really high quality jam is really nice because I like cheese and jam together.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. Do you not do that?
No, not usually. I mean, my friends always put out, fig jam with their French cheeses, but I usually leave the jam and eat the cheese.
Okay, so leave the jam, eat the cheese, so then just toast the bread and eat it on its own.
Yes.
This is 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, and then to that add 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder and a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda because we're using buttermilk, so it's acidic, so we want to use baking soda as well. A teaspoon
and a loaf pan that is buttered and floured.
And the oven is at 350 degrees.
Right.
There's a teaspoon of salt, and then to this mixture I'm adding almost all, not completely all, about 6 ounces of the grated cheddar. Sharp cheddar is the best, and then 1 ounce goes on top.
And I should pour this over that?
Yep. Just mix it in.
Okay. Here's a scraper for
There
you.
you have one. Okay, good. That's it. That's all there is to it. It's like any quick bread. This one's savory, which is kind of nice. When I went to Ireland, we had tons of quick breads because they all make that delicious brown bread.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so good.
Here,
It's getting a
why
little...
don't you use the spatula?
Yeah, that's a good idea. All right. That just gets mixed in there and then transferred to that buttered and floured pan. It's a little stiff. It's stiffer than some batters, so you might want to just sort of like pat it in there.
I will.
And then smooth the top and good to go.
So it's a rough, quick bread.
Yeah, but it comes out really nicely. It domes a little bit on top. It gets a little golden from the cheese, so
I might even take a piece of this home so that I can have my cheddar with something.
Your cheese bread with cheese?
Right.
I'm all for that.
Okay, there.
There you go. Sprinkle. And then it takes about 50 to 55 minutes to bake. 350. A cake tester inserted in the center should come out clean.
So Wisconsin cheese bread actually is really, really pretty. That's lovely. Can I have an interior slice, please?
Absolutely, no end.
No, I don't want an end.
Nice,
Yeah.
tender interior.
Oh, it's so pretty.
Moist?
So it's moist, yeah.
Yeah.
Look how nicely it slices.
Yeah, it'll slice
Really.
well. There you
great.
go.
Oh, lovely.
The thinnest slice ever.
Soft Irish butter, please. This bread isn't just for your favorite cheese heads.
It's for everyone.
It's for everyone. Thank you very much for showing
Thank you.
us this. And thank you all for watching. See you next time on Martha Bakes. Immediately invert a baked sponge cake onto a large clean towel. Peel off the parchment paper. Roll the towel and the cake into a log. Transfer your cake seam side down to a wire rack to cool. Unroll the cooled cake. Spread the filling evenly over the cake. Gently roll the cake again, but without rolling it up in the towel this time. Refrigerate until well chilled.